Hi guys, welcome back. We are going to continue our reading. So the title of the book we started reading was Hose. The author is Louis Sacher. Here's what the book looks like. But if you remember, we are actually doing an adapted version of the book. But all that means is we are going to get basically the same information, just not as much text. We're going to condense it down. There will also be pictures in here to help us remember things. At the end, we're going to have a question and answer session. So if you don't have the questions printed out, it's not a big deal. Have paper and pencil ready. If you don't have paper and pencil, you may want to hit pause, so you can go ahead and get those now. And let's go ahead and jump in. Today we're actually going to be reading chapters 4 through 6 in Hose, but just as a quickie review, the last time we read, we learned that Stanley had to go in front of a judge. He had stolen some shoes. The judge gave him the choice of going to Camp Green Lake or jail. Stanley chose Camp Green Lake because he was thinking, I've never been to a camp. My family's kind of poor. Let's try Camp Green Lake. So that's where he went. Now today we're going to look at the next 3 chapters, 4 through 6 in Hose. They'll be here in my book, but they're also going to be up on the screen, so you can follow along on the screen. When Stanley arrived at Camp Green Lake, his mouth was dry and his throat hurt. He had been on the bus for over 8 hours. He looked around and only saw 2 trees by a cabin. There was no other plant life, not even weeds. The guard led Stanley into a building. My name is Mr. Sir. That is how you will address me, he said. Mr. Sir gives Stanley 2 sets of orange jumpsuits to wear. Alright, so now, just as a recap here, here's our main character, Stanley. When Stanley arrived, he'd been on the bus for over 8 hours. His throat hurt, his mouth was dry. He gets off the bus, and all he sees is dry land. Not what he was expecting. He said he didn't even see any weeds. It was dry land. Then the guard leads him into this building, and the man in the building introduces himself. He says, my name is Mr. Sir, and that's what you're going to call me. He gives Stanley 2 sets of orange jumpsuits to wear while he's there. And then let's turn the page here too, sorry. Mr. Sir, he tells Stanley he has to dig a hole every day. Stanley was assigned to Tent D, and Mr. Pendanski was his counselor. Mr. Pendanski warns Stanley not to upset the warden. Mr. Pendanski introduced Stanley to the other boys in the tent. Each boy had a nickname. The boys asked Stanley what he did. He told them he stole shoes from a famous baseball player, even though he was really innocent. So now, all of the boys are assigned to sleep in tents. Stanley's in tent D. It's on here somewhere. Stanley's in tent D. There are several other boys in the tent with him. Stanley's counselor is Mr. Pendanski. And the other boys, when they'd ask him, they're like, what'd you do? What are you in for? Because remember, this is a camp for boys who got in trouble. Stanley says, I stole a pair of shoes. Stanley didn't really steal the shoes, but nobody believes him. Okay? So that was chapters 4 through 6 for us. We are going to go ahead and look at the questions. Now again, remember, if you don't have these questions, it's okay. You don't have to. You can print them out, but you don't have to. You can just write down your numbers and the answers. So let's jump in. Question number 1. What's the title of the story? Flying to Mars, Hatchet, Hose. What is the title of the story? Flying to Mars, Hatchet, Hose. Determine your answer. Circle it if you have this printed out. If you don't, just write it down. I'll give you a few seconds. Everybody got it? So what is the title of our book? What book are we reading? Yes, we are reading Hose. That's our new book, Hose. Who's the author of this book? For number 2, is it Gary Paulson, Louis Sacher, James Patterson? Who's the author? Circle it if you have this or write it down. Gary Paulson, Louis Sacher, James Patterson. Yep, you're right. You should have written down Louis Sacher. He is the author of our book. Now for the author and the title, they're right here on the front of our book. The title is Hose. The author is Louis Sacher. If you don't know answers, you can always go back and look for them. I would like for you to answer them on your own as much as possible, but you can definitely go back and look. Don't wait on me. I want to know what you know. Okay, let's look at number 3. Where did Stanley go? Can you see me? Okay. Where did Stanley go? Did he go home? Did he go to jail? Or Camp Green Lake? Where did he go? Home? Jail? Camp Green Lake? Circle it on your paper or write your answer down. That's right. Stanley went to Camp Green Lake. So you should have written down Camp Green Lake, or you should have circled it. And how do we know that's the correct answer? Well, if we go back in our book, in our chapter, right here at the top, when Stanley arrived at Camp Green Lake. So it's right here in our book. Always go back and look if you're not sure of the answer. Let's look at the next questions. We're almost done. 3 more questions. Number 4. Where is Stanley going? Well, that's the same question. You should get this one right. Home, Camp Green Lake, or the circus? Again, same question. That one should be easy. Stanley's going to Camp Green Lake. You should have that written down or circled on your paper. Number 5. Who is Stanley's counselor? Is it Mr. Sir, the guard, or Mr. Pendanski? Who is Stanley's counselor? Mr. Sir, the guard, or Mr. Pendanski? Write down your answer or circle it on your paper. Stanley's counselor is Mr. Pendanski. You should have circled Mr. Pendanski or written that down on your paper. Question number 6. Well, I forgot to show you. Let's go back and look real quick. If we go back in our book, it says it right here in our chapters. Stanley was assigned to Tent D, and Mr. Pendanski was his counselor. So again, anytime you need to, go back in the book and look for answers. Number 6. Why was Stanley sent to Camp Green Lake? He stole shoes. He stole money. He hurt others. He stole shoes. He stole money. He hurt others. Circle your answer or write it down. Okay, yes, Stanley stole shoes. And if you're not sure, you can always go back, and it says it right here in our book, or in our chapters. The boys had asked him what he did to get to Camp Green Lake, and he told them he stole shoes from a famous baseball player. Alright, so that finishes chapters 4 through 6 in our new book called Holes. If you need to rewatch it to make sure you've got all the information, go for it. If not, we'll read chapter 7 next. It'll just be chapter 7 because it's a long chapter. Bye, guys.